Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and your community.
I'm Milan. I was born in South Carolina to a really rural country area. My family still resides there today, very family oriented, but very rural per se. Not a lot of access to stores and things like that. And my family in Kentucky lives mostly in a small town called Midway. There used to be one street light, there's now more. And both have given me like just a wealth of knowledge of different folks. So I don't have necessarily like a sense of one type of community, because in moving both places, and I used to also reside in several areas in Lexington, I feel like I've learned what blended community looks like, and that's community from all aspects and walks of life.
Right. What was your community like growing up?
So growing up in South Carolina, it was really more familial family. Having cousins around my same age, we really just grew up really close-knit. And the majority of where I lived at the time was African-American. And as I moved back to Kentucky, in particular Lexington, Woodford County, we became more of the minority. And so just that cultural differences, but also, again, in my moving back and forth, just developing a blended community of different walks of life, really just people from all types of experiences. So I used to live in Lexington and Winburn, and I used to live here. So I think it's just a mix of many different stories from different people, and having neighbors that sometimes look like me and sometimes didn't. So I don't think I have a one type of community, but several experiences of community together.
And how has it changed?
Well, now that I live in Lexington, and I feel like growing up, everybody knew their neighbors. It's not the same. I feel like sometimes we do. And again, sometimes that's not necessarily a thing that people push against. It's just sometimes ways of life, scheduling. We live such busy lives now, to take the time to sit with a neighbor and to do community events is something that I think is important, but sometimes doesn't happen. Again, where my mom and dad live, Midway is very much a quaint town, and everybody knows your name. So I think in some ways, the ways of life with social media has made it, you can find your community without it being your neighborhood, but a lot of the neighborly feelings is not necessarily how it used to be when I felt like it was growing up.
What environmental things have you noticed since moving to Kentucky?
Yeah, for me, like, it was the whole experience of, as a kid, you don't pay attention to things, but as an adult, whether that be through life experiences or education, you pick up on things. So I used to work at, I think I'm just talking from experience and from environmental, but working at Amazon, and just remembering even being in a factory itself and being diagnosed with asthma and having to carry an inhaler, and something I had not had to do before. So just having that experience opened me up. And then as an environmental educator, being aware, not just from my own experiences, but how communities have been impacted in Lexington and even regional Kentucky statewide, just the many aspects from coal mining, what that's done to the land, to my sister lives off Leestown Road, and there's wastewater treatment place that it just smells like waste. And so how is that affecting our environment? And again, what do we do about it? So I think a lot of it is just things that may have been here for years, just actually being aware of what the causes are, and we know what the impact is to us as people. So I think there is a lot to think about as we think about our water and what's in it, how we're being impacted by factories that are here. Coal is still king here because that's how we get our electricity. So again, just being mindful of where we are and what's the future look like with climate change and people being aware of it more rapidly now.
And what are your hopes for your current community now and for the future?
I think it goes back to what I said, us being more neighborly, just aware of things, not just, especially, I think in African American communities, a lot of us are aware of what's going on and have been, but it's knowing that our voices have power and being able to make the changes that we want to see, whether that's in this generation or the next coming generations, but being able to be heard and listen, organize in a way that we're all moving forward. And being able to enjoy this life and not always be about justice, but justice and joyful moments.
That's awesome. I've always respected you. Every time we see each other, it's like this beautiful energy, this beautiful vibe, you know what I'm saying? And I just love your natural hair. Like, you just get all the snaps, sweetie. And I thank you for your time and your patience, me figuring this all out. I really appreciate that because, when you find your people and you can just be you, it's such a beautiful gift. Marianne Williamson, she has this poem, Our Deepest Fear. It's one of my favorite poems, and I send it to you. And it says, when you are yourself, you unconsciously give other people permission to be themselves. And that line is one of my favorite lines because it's like, you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. And they don't even realize that that's what they're doing. It's just like, some people like, I don't even know. When you just meet people, it's like, what is that? And you're like, I don't know. The vibe is just there. The energy is just, it's just there. Right. It's no real way to really articulate that. Or I say sometimes it's like no time has passed. I might have not have seen you for 4 years, but when we get back together, it's like, hey, it's just one of those things. And especially in what we're doing, it's so important. I think about, what my dad would say, and he'd be like, when you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. And it doesn't mean that it's not work, but it's like, it's not work, because it's something you love. It's something that is important to you. And when it's important to you, you make time for it. You put all your effort into it. And so I definitely appreciate your time because I can't even imagine your schedule. I don't even want to try to imagine your schedule. I'm okay with that. But I have a pretty good idea. So for you to help me out and to represent your community, because this is what this is all about, us representing our communities and, just doing the best that we can and to get this information out to the best of our abilities. So I really appreciate that. And I thank you.